Hello everyone, my name is Thor and welcome back to Anthropology. Thank you for joining me in today's video. I hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to discuss the new documentary that just launched on Netflix, Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy. This documentary essentially explores all the impacts that engineered overconsumption has caused on the environment, on human society as a whole, how it's disrupted just general channels of like community and how we think about consumption, and how essentially it's all built in a really refined science that these companies have taken on and enacted to make us buy more, consume more, disregard the consequences around what our consumption does for the planet, for other people around us, and just generally the impacts that these overconsumption patterns have on our lives. So I wanted to basically say that I watched this movie so you don't have to. So this is going to be a general summation of the movie, as well as some of my thoughts around things that they maybe didn't touch on that I wanted to address in terms of overconsumption, underconsumption, just my general thoughts and feelings of the movie. So I have my notes here. So buckle in, grab a drink, settle in, put some laundry, I don't know. But this will be my summation, my synopsis, my thoughts and feelings around Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy. So, according to their own description of the film, this subversive documentary unpacks the tricks brands use to keep their customers consuming and the real impacts that they have on our lives and the world, with the whistleblowers from Amazon, Adidas, and Apple, among others, coming to generally expose the consumer industry. I thought the film was quite satirical in nature, in the sense that it's essentially a documentary that goes through the 5 tricks that brands can use to convince consumers to spend more. And in their satirical type voice, they sort of present it as if it's like a masterclass or a type of workshop that prospective business owners can take this information, use the clear, simple steps that they outline in order to make their consumer pliable in their hands to shop and spend and just be manipulated. They essentially do this so that they can trick you into buying, and not really thinking about what happens to the product after we're done with it, whether we're done with it for just because the product is no longer functional, whether we're done with it because we just don't like it anymore. The end of the product life cycle is something that companies and brands want consumers to not think about. And with these 5 easy steps, this documentary goes to explore how you can essentially trick the consumer and how companies have tricked the consumer into thinking this way. Essentially, they want consumers to only think about new products coming, forgetting about the products that go out. Overall, I thought the documentary was really well done. I did enjoy it. It primarily focuses on the fast aspects of consumption, whether that be fast fashion, whether that be the general trend of buying the newest and most up-to-date technology, such as like new iPhones, new gaming systems, new games. It really does touch on the features that make it so much easier for us to purchase things, such as the buy now feature on Amazon, where essentially you just need to see the item on your screen and you click buy now and it's immediately coming to your door. They talk about the ways in which these companies have removed the layer of critical thinking from their e-commerce websites in order to give less time and less barriers for the consumer from when they see an item that they desire to when they purchase it. A lot of other companies have enacted this as well. The rise of buy now, pay later companies, which if you go back on my channel, I did a video on that, where it's like this buy now, pay later scheme for e-commerce has made it so that people are able to purchase things at a seemingly lower price, but then they are indebted to these companies, making their consumer debt skyrocket. And then if you're not careful with how you consume, you can become overwhelmed with the amount of payments that come, because you're like, oh, it's only like $20 here, $15 there. But then it's like you're paying that for over consecutive months. And if you buy a lot of things, you'll end up with significant payments. That's for another time. However, the documentary also explores aspects of fast fashion, primarily how the fashion industry is one in which constant output is sort of required, how the seasons have gone from 2 a year, fall, winter, spring, summer, to now fall, winter, spring, summer, pre-spring, pre-fall, like And that's just luxury fashion. It doesn't even include the tiers of fast fashion, such as Uniqlo, such as Shein, which produces up to 1 million styles a year, which is crazy if you think about it. Like they want styles of garments, not even 1 million garments themselves, 1 million styles of garments that you can choose from. They also discuss about how sometimes in vain increase their circularity. What they didn't touch on was the burning of fashion or like the disposal of unsold fashion for like brand protection. They did talk about how like some things are discarded, like how they used examples of Michael Kors and Coach, where they will slash items in order to make them unsellable. They didn't really touch on like the whole like scandal that Burberry did or like that the French government has now outlawed this, but I did think it was interesting that they did touch on the fact that a lot of brands will purposefully damage their own product in order to discard it and make it unsellable. I did like the aspects that they explored around the addictive nature of consumption, how the frenzied purchasing. I think this was really prevalent maybe in like the early to mid 2000s with the whole frenzy of in-person Black Friday shopping. I'm filming this around Black Friday season, so it's very pertinent to today's climate, but Black Friday has significantly shifted away from in-store, I think, to heavily e-commerce. So there's no like doorbuster deals. There's no people fighting or getting arrested or getting even killed to buy a TV. But the frenzy that was happening and was generated around these new items that you just had to have it. And if you didn't have it, you were on the outcast. But I really did enjoy that they discussed the aspects of computers and iPhones, how there was the frenzy of people buying a new iPhone every single year. And it got to the point where we have some of the most complex computers in our pockets at all times. And people were treating them as disposable, just buying one, filling it up, getting the new one next year, even though you can probably see from Apple that they're basically just reissuing the same phone multiple times, which is like, you know, but essentially, it created this manufactured version of desire where if you didn't have the newest iPhone, like who were you? And obviously, this relates to a bunch of other things, but these items are not supposed to be disposable. And if you look at phones that we had from like the beginning, when they were first starting to create like the telephone, they were meant to last. Like there was a move away from creating products to last and creating products that were going to be potentially like intergenerational to now products that are meant to not last, that have this sort of manufactured obsolescence built into them where they don't want the product to last. Because if you only buy one of something, that ends the consumer cycle. If you're forced to buy multiples of something, that keeps you spending, that keeps you coming back for more from the company perspective. One thing I also liked is they showed the visual impact of the garments that we dispose of in the West, like, you know, closet clean out, declutter. You donate that clothing thinking it goes to some mythical place and it's given a beautiful second life with a deserving family. But a lot of those items that we in the West discard of, they don't actually get the second life that we think they get. They often will end up on beaches, potentially in Ghana, like they show, where they're just littering and polluting the physical environment, but they're also disrupting the social environment where they are disrupting the local economies because these people are being inundated with used clothing that they can't wear nor consume within themselves. And it's disrupting their local, you know, clothing production, their local production of just general garments. And they're being inundated with garbage, essentially. This documentary really makes you think about the whole life cycle of a product. And if you go back to my video where I talk about Fashion File and Burberry even, there's an increase in these brands to discuss and address the topic of circularity, bringing their products either back into their production cycle so that they can create new products with the old material, or just generally ways to give products a second life. I was looking at a National Post article about this documentary, and they mentioned some crazy stats, which I wanted to address, that we produce around 400 million tons of plastic waste globally each year, according to the United Nations Environmental Program. We also make 92 million tons of textile waste annually from the World Economic Forum. So this is not including the actual tons of garments that's produced. This is just the waste from like the trims of making this sweater, for example, up to 92 million tons of textile waste. So it's just cuts that cannot be used or turned into anything. In addition, in 2022, we produced an estimated 62 million tons of waste globally from electrical and electronic equipment, e-waste. says the World Health Organization. They also discuss the concepts of how items now are no longer repairable, in the sense that you used to be able to buy an item and it would come with a booklet that you could repair that item, or you could call someone to repair the item for you. Now items are made either too cheaply, or they're just made so that you cannot repair them yourselves. And the example they use is the iPhone. In general, Apple products, Apple has become so anti-repair in the sense that they are gluing their phones together now. So it's essentially impossible for you to take it apart, fix a battery, replace it back together, because the whole phone now is destroyed because of how they put it together. One thing that I do like is, and I thought it was really interesting, is that they brought up the concept of greenwashing in recycling and general plastic creation. One of the examples that they give is in a grocery store. We're told if you can recycle, it's fine. Just like keep recycling, the world will be a better place. And they use the example of plastic number 6, which is often unrecyclable, but it is given the recycle symbol. So when you see it, you think, oh, recyclable, great. After I watched the documentary, I actually took a look in my own cupboard. I had a yogurt, looked at the bottom after I cleaned it to recycle it, plastic number 6. What happens to plastic number 6? According to this documentary, plastic number 6 is either burned or buried. So it is not recycled and turned into a new product. So it really makes you wonder how much we are being lied to as a consumer, in the sense that we're told that if we just split our recyclables, everything will be fine. Recycle more, the world will be better. And yet the companies responsible for creating these recycled goods, for recycling in and of itself, are not doing their part in this. It's essentially just to appease the mind of the consumer in order for them to keep buying. Some areas which I thought they didn't explore were around luxury fashion, because they did mention a lot of things around like brand protection. And I thought it was interesting that they didn't mention the concept of luxury houses burning and discarding their own goods. Yeah, they mentioned like mid-tier, Michael Kors, Coach, etc. But on the luxury scale, I thought it would have been interesting to add, because brand protection is so important at that level in order to keep people buying and spending the money associated with the brand. Now, I believe they may have done this for one or two reasons. One being around that luxury fashion is often not as discarded from a consumer. Like if you're spending thousands of dollars on something, you're not just going to throw it in the trash. You're going to give it a second life, go to a consignment store, resell it, repurpose it potentially. Like it'll be less likely to end up in a landfill or on the beaches of Ghana. They didn't offer too many other solutions other than just don't consume as much, or consume more circularly if possible. Be more mindful when you consume about the general life cycle of the product that you purchase. The primary issue that I think will curb this is obviously government regulations. It's been proven time and time again that companies will not regulate themselves unless there are strict impositions on them placed by a government body. But obviously through lobbying, through all of that, they purchased the government in some ways. So it's hard for them to actually have a policed model around just generally becoming greener. The other option that they give is just to repair more, to extend the life cycle of the product, which I think is really good. Or obviously buy secondhand if you can, to then give another product a second life. I think just generally the takeaway from this is to be more mindful when you shop about what you bring into your house, because you can just purchase a bunch of things. Like Temu is like evil in my eyes, because it's just such, I don't want to say garbage product, but just product that is so cheaply made, cheaply manufactured. It's meant for single use most of the time, because you can't really wash or wear it. And then it's just discarded away. And I understand like the implications of inflation, all of that. People cannot afford to buy really expensive things all the time. But it's just to think about what will be the best for you long term, and what would be potentially the best for the environment. Because the graphics they showed, where it's just garbage and shoes piled the same height as skyscrapers, if we are not careful as a society, we are going to be unable to ignore the waste that we create and the waste that we discard, and it's going to overflow our lives. It's overflowing the oceans, it's overflowing developing nations where a lot of the manufacturing for the West takes place. And it's unfair for the people living in those areas for our waste to disrupt their environment. Obviously, that's like a fact of how the world has been created thus far, but it's important from like a Western consumer perspective to really think about that and like just make more critical decisions before you actually buy something. That's my video. Definitely recommend this documentary if you are looking for this type of content. Please consider liking, commenting, subscribing. I'm hoping to get to 5,000 subscribers soon. I'm getting closer and closer every day, so thank you so much for everyone that's a part of this family. Obviously, we have to be kind to ourselves, and we're not going to save the world one by one, but all together, who knows what collective action we can have. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Bye, guys.